This question comes to us from James, and James asks, he says, when I get to my longer clubs, especially his rescues, long iron rescues, fairway woods, he always feels like he's trapped or the club's behind him. The tour calls it stuck, which is interesting because nobody's ever stuck. The club's moving, it's just out of position. So I don't even like to use that word, but it's out of position relative to your hands. And he says no matter what he does, he says his right elbow, he sees it way below his left. Is there any way he can fix that? Well, one of the biggest misconceptions in this game, or I should say ideas about lag and creating speed, was to try to get your right elbow in front of your right hip. Now, I won't disagree that if I get my right elbow in front of my right hip, if I can by any chance catch that thing up, it's going to have to really be accelerating to catch it up. Unfortunately, I spent half my career there, and that's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to do it consistently. So where does your right elbow really work, and what do you want to feel? So if you've struggled with that, here's what my right arm feels like. It actually feels like when I get to the top of my swing, if you look at this line in my shirt, okay? So here's what happens. I go up here. It feels to me like my elbow comes right down on the line in my shirt. Now, if my elbow comes down and into my right side right here, and it stops. So if my elbow gets stopped by my body, then what's the club going to do? It's going to take off. I mean, there's no way it's stuck. When you get in trouble is when your right elbow gets like this and gets out in front of your right hip. Now, I know they talked about a lot of the old players. I won't even use names. But they said they used to lead with their right elbow, and their right elbow got way in here before they went. Well, a lot of that was camera angles, and I would question whether that really happened or not. Because I've watched a lot of those players from face on, personally. And here's what happens. From this angle, it appears that their elbow is way in front of their hip. But when I turn to the side, see, my elbow is not past my hip. My elbow gets right here onto my hip, and then my elbow and my hip turn into the ball together. So for those of you who struggle with this, who have done that for a long time, what's the opposite of that? Well, it would be your right elbow working behind your right hip. So it'd feel like it's doing this. Now, are you going to do that? Probably not, but there's a really good player that does that, Jim Furyk. So his club's out in front of him is good, if not better than anybody. And his right elbow, when he starts down, his right elbow is behind his right hip. So there's no way this is ever going to get what you call stuck, because my arm stops, so what's going to go? The club. When you get in trouble is when your arms outrun your body. That's when you get in trouble. So that's a really good way to practice, or a good thought, is that your right elbow goes up and then behind you. It won't. It goes up and it feels like it goes behind you, and then you hit it. And just make some nice, soft, easy swings. Now, if I do that and I go slow, so I'm going to feel like my right elbow goes behind my right hip and I hit it from there. That's what it's going to feel like. But now if you watch that on the video, my right elbow didn't get behind my right hip, which is another reason why people struggle with this game, is because what you feel is happening and what you're actually doing with your body parts and momentum and gravity and centripetal force aren't even close to the same. So don't be afraid to do that a little bit and exaggerate it a bit. This right elbow past the ball, get your right elbow in front of your right hip. In my opinion, that's one of these things that's really, really hurt a lot of players. Some have made it work. I won't disagree with that. But the masses, me included, that's a hard place to try to play golf from.